Good afternoon. Welcome to the MedTech Conference Keynote Luncheon. Please direct your attention to the screens for a brief video.
Define.
To discover.
Or identify.
The goal.
The vision.
The opportunity.
To set the standard.
So, what does it mean to redefine?
To reimagine. Re-examine.
To transform.
MedTech has pushed the boundaries of what's possible, and for the last 50 years, AdvaMed has led the way, advocating for patients, innovation, and the future of healthcare. Are you ready to show how you're redefining healthcare?
Please join me in welcoming the President and Chief Executive Officer of AdvaMed, Scott Whitaker.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. It's great to be back in San Diego, a beautiful city. And by the way, this is our largest U.S. MedTech conference we've ever held. So thank you, California, and thank you, San Diego, for turning out. On my office wall in D.C., I have a painting of Frederick Douglass, and underneath a plaque with one of the most powerful things he said over a lifetime of eloquence. It reads, "I would unite with anyone to do right, but with no one to do wrong." He was responding to criticism of his willingness to work with those in power to abolish slavery, instead of working solely with the more purist abolitionist groups of his time. This great leader was willing to work with people he disagreed with on many issues in order to accomplish the greater good of freeing his people. He saw politics as pragmatism, a mighty tool that he could skillfully use to forge a better tomorrow. He saw people that he disagreed with as potential allies who could share his commitment to freedom. If Douglass picked a side, it was that of doing good, the side of human decency. There's not enough of that spirit today. In fact, we live in very unsettling times. Today's heated politics has boiled over into political violence. And as a result, not only are you navigating through a difficult business environment, you're navigating through a very difficult political, policy, and cultural environment as well. Our job at AdvaMed, as it has been for the past 50 years, is to steady the wheel. Our mission remains laser-focused on advancing policies that matter to all of us, and when necessary, helping our companies avoid the politics of the day. While our country's path out of this cultural crossroads is still a bit unclear, the path through it is not so unclear. That path through it is with us, as your trade association, united and focused on policies that make a difference in people's lives, and never losing sight of our why, our true north. As global business leaders, we must continue to lead the way and help change the tone in our country and around the world by showing how we can talk to each other, how we compete with each other, and most importantly, how we disagree with each other, all while serving a mission that is greater than any one of us. I look out at this audience and I see thousands of people with a singular focus on getting new technologies to people who are suffering. And over the years, I've talked a lot about the incredible innovations our companies are developing, the light speed at which MedTech progress is moving, and about the patients we've impacted. But today, instead of hearing me talk about them, I'd like you to hear directly from them. There's nothing more powerful than the words, their own tears of joy, and their own smiles. So let's start with Peter, diagnosed with immune disorder at age 44 that is often terminal by age 50. Today, he's alive thanks to medical technology, a technology that transforms plasma into medicine. Let's hear what he has to say.
I am so thankful to be alive today and to be here, living a good life that at one time I didn't expect to ever have. Sometimes I sit back and think if I was born even just 50 years earlier, I'd probably be dead by now. I will be forever thankful, one, to the medical community who diagnosed it. I'm just so thankful for it all. It has made my life what it is today. So I think I got my wife a while ago. It says, grow old along with me, and the best is yet to be.
And then there's Kent, who was paralyzed from the waist down in a motorcycle accident, told he would never get out of his chair again. He was devastated, as you can imagine. But he was also determined. So he sought cutting-edge treatments and found one in the epidural stimulator. While it isn't a cure, let's hear in his own words how it made a difference in his life.
One of the things that hits you when you're in the hospital, am I ever going to get married? Am I going to have kids? And at this point, I'm married. And the epidural stimulator program gave me the ability to stand at my wedding. As soon as she started walking down the aisle, the emotion just hit me. Like, I don't really cry, but man, I was bawling. Even getting to dance with my mom, I mean, that was so awesome. And I feel so close to the kids thing. Like, I know it's coming.
And then there's Deborah, living in constant pain, with pain in both her hips and both of her knees, unable to play with her grandchildren. And let's hear how MedTech transformed her life.
Because of medical technology, today I'm able to dance again. I'm able to exercise using my legs and my hips. I can enjoy the time that I have with my family. I really enjoy, most of all, the fact that I can, take my grandbabies to the playground. I'm walking without pain, where I knew at one point it took over my life. Because of medical technology, I have my life back.
And then there's Alan, from a small town hours away from a medical center with a long history of lung cancer in his family. And like so many, understandably scared to get checked because he didn't want to know what the answer could be. But all it took was a mobile cancer screening unit to save his life.
I've heard patients say, if I have cancer, I don't want treatment, or if I have cancer, I don't want to know, so whatever you find, don't tell me. And usually I see that as an opportunity to ask more questions and say, well, why would you say that? We're finding it at earlier stages where we have much better treatment options, and instead of saying we're going to give you medicine to help control this cancer, we talk about maybe we could even cure this cancer.
I went to see my surgeon after my surgery, and all the tests come back, and he told me, he said, "You're cancer-free, bub." This is a portrait of my daughter's wedding. A lot of people in that photo supported me and supported my decision to get scanned and helped me through my treatment, and continue to support me, that's for sure. They've seen me sick. They've seen me strong. Now I'm cancer-free in remission. I thank God every day for it.
I've gotten 2 more years with my dad. And I hope many, many more.
And then finally, there's Johnny. Johnny suffered from Parkinson's to the point where his tremors no longer allowed him to write and make the basic things of life, eating and drinking, very, very difficult. It's a terrible disease for which so many treatments have failed. But MedTech is showing profound promise, and it was our industry that gave him his life back.
Anyways, we got 2 hours before surgery, and I'm looking forward to this, and putting all my faith in these good doctors and the technology.
Breathe in your fingers. Squeeze. And have me touch you in here.
Okay, we're done.
Arms up in the air.
I consider it to be a miracle. I don't toss that word around lately, but it really is. It was the best decision I've made in my life, because my quality of life went from here be here in less than 2 hours. It was amazing. Obviously, it worked because I haven't had a tumor in 14 months. And my life has changed so amazingly.
Flag! Awesome, Johnny.
These people saved my life.
Living without pain again, standing up again, cancer-free again, playing golf again. Since the beginning of time, we've been making Americans and people around the world healthy again and again and again. Our industry's enduring mission has always transcended cultural and political divides. Our mission has always been to minimize the number of people we call patients and to minimize the amount of time patients spend as patients. Now, whether you agree or disagree with certain aspects of this administration's initiatives, one thing we can all agree on is we want people to be healthy again, back on their feet again, back to work, back to enjoying life. Every technology you create, every innovation you bring to market, every problem that you solve represents someone's tomorrow that might not have happened without you. Time is our most precious and priceless commodity, and ours is an industry that gives people more of it. So let's all adopt the anthem that defined Frederick Douglass's life. Let us unite with anyone to do right on behalf of the patients we serve. Thank you for all you've done, for your hard work, for your leadership, and thank you for being here today. And now let me welcome to the stage GE Healthcare CEO and AdvaMed's Chairman of the Board, Peter Arduini.
Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be with you. Very excited to be here in San Diego. Someone said, how many have you been to these? I think I've been to all of them. I've been to so many over the years, but it's just great to see how they've been evolving over the few years. I want to thank Scott for kicking us off and the focus on patients, which is so important for our industry. It is such a critical message about what we do and who we are. And so we've seen what 50 years of medical technology has meant for patients, including families, and many of you and your families that are here with us today obviously have benefited from products that you actually make and many of the member companies here. I've been fortunate to spend the last really 22 months as board chair, coming to my end here of the chairmanship at the end of this year, and I've been tremendously honored to represent this industry. I care so much about it and want to see, obviously, it preserved and to continue to grow for years to come. At the outset of becoming a chair, just seems like yesterday, I talked about 3 priorities. Drive digital transformation for MedTech, which as we know is a big part of what we're doing. Resiliency in the health system, which is about access of our innovation in different countries all around the world, and creating a stronger and more unified AdvaMed. Those were the 3. And I think all of you have done a great job of advancing those. I think the integration of our medical imaging group and the launch of the digital health division has been a big success. AdvaMed now represents the full spectrum of medical technology innovation. And this expansion brings in vital perspectives from the broader tech industry, particularly the ecosystem out here in the West Coast, helping ensure that patients benefit from a more connected, efficient, and personalized care journey. So the formation of the Congressional Digital Health Caucus reflects kind of this growing recognition, at least in DC, of our industry's impact, not just today, but in shaping kind of the future of where healthcare is going. This idea that focuses on patient safety, ethical use of AI, and also equitable access for many of our technologies. Last year, also, a bipartisan congressional engagement led the first ever legislation addressing coverage and payment for algorithm-based health services around artificial intelligence. And the landmark achievement that supports the use of AI and digital tools to strengthen health systems and improve fundamentally better patient outcomes, early detection, faster diagnosis, many of the things that Scott's referenced in the patients that were on the video before. We also had some major wins for patients and their ability to gain access to benefit from innovations developed by members in this room. I think the CMS implementation of a new policy here to expedite Medicare coverage for FDA-designated breakthroughs is quite promising. And then separate payment for radiopharmaceuticals and PET scans is a big deal, now enables more access for imaging for patients with cancer, neurological, cardiovascular disease as an example. And then Medicare coverage for virtual colonographies as well as blood-based biomarkers. These tests as well, the approvals to advance that obviously will make quite a large impact across the patient populations. Our growing membership over the past 2 years is very exciting. If you look around this room, this was a very small room maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It's great to see the growth of this. And obviously, the record attendance at this event reflects the power of our collective voice. And that's a really important message that I want to leave you with, is the collective voice. We're driving, innovation, shaping patient care, but the health system, making sure that it works better for everyone is critical. An Einstein quote that I like quite a bit is this idea that in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. And if you think about the past 2 years, if anything, we've seen all types of challenges, from a global challenges, geopolitical. It's obviously been a powerful platform for our industry, even during all these changes, to talk about what we do and make sure legislatures, folks understand that. I've spent countless hours in Washington, D.C. with many of our fellow board members, too many to mention here, but fundamentally being in front of key folks, telling our story, and it resonates in D.C. I think, and it resonates in other countries around the world, the value that we contribute, that you contribute to patients, but also the U.S. economy. And while uncertainty remains, out there, I think I've never been prouder about our industry and the advocacy that we represent, what we can do to change the future of healthcare for the better. And so I want to encourage everyone here to stay engaged with Washington and your governments around the world. For those that are U.S. citizens, to give to your PACs. If there's ever a time when you wanted to give to a PAC, this is the time to be able to amplify the voice and stay laser focused on the policies and things that are critical to this industry and the patients that we care about. So the regulatory environment, obviously out there's a lot going on. We've talked about everything from AI to tariffs, but it's critical that we manage that. And look, I would just say the great part about this industry is, yes, we compete against one another, but under this umbrella of AdvaMed, we can set aside our differences and opinions to kind of focus on how we move this industry best forward, which ultimately, shepherding it together, will make the broadest positive impact for patients and ultimately for the companies that we represent. At the center of this, though, obviously, is ultimately making a difference for patients. It's one of the reasons that I've stayed in this industry so long, is that impact. And really, for the next 5 to 10 years, our companies here will probably have a greater impact on patients than they've had in the last 50 combined. And that's super exciting. And so there's no other greater motivation for me than that. I just had a granddaughter, our first in the family, and when I look at her, I feel the awesome responsibility to say, what can we do to preserve what all of you do such a great job at? Because I want the promise of a better, longer, more fulfilling life for her and for many young children and folks coming into the world today. And look, I look around, I'm super optimistic about the great work that all of you do. So let's collectively keep patients at the center of what we do and how we work. And I want to thank you for committing the time to come out here, engaging with each other to make us all better. Thank you very much and enjoy the conference.
Please join me in welcoming Chairman, President, and CEO of Zimmer Biomet, Ivan Tornos.
Good afternoon. Oh, come on. Good afternoon. All right. I love what we get to do. I love what we get to do. I love our ambition. I love our purpose. I love our why. I want to talk about we. I'm not talking about Zimmer Biomet, the company that I'm privileged to represent. I'm talking about we, this MedTech family that has the impact that Pete and Scott were talking about. And specifically in orthopedics or musculoskeletal care, I'm really proud of the work that we, the 60 orthopedic companies represented here at AdvaMed, get to do each and every day. And every day is hyperbolic because we do it every single second. We, the orthopedic company or companies, impact somebody's lives every 1.6 seconds. And I'm not going to go through the math because I'm quite jet lagged, but if you start to crank seconds, minutes, hours, days, you get the point. It's a turbulent time to be in MedTech. It's a challenging time to be in MedTech. External and internal pressures, but the why matters. There is somebody today who's going to have a better life than yesterday because of the work that we get to do every 1.6 seconds. And that Stryker, that is our friends at Arthrex, that's Smith & Nephew, there's Johnson & Johnson, that's Think Surgical, that's Enovis, there's a lot of small companies that with limited resources do a lot of things for patients every 1.6 seconds. And as I tell my team, we're just getting started. Because if you do calculate the impact of all of us, what we do today in musculoskeletal care is around 30 million patients. And that is a fraction of the pie. There are 600 million people on Earth that suffer from arthritis, with osteoarthritis being the lion's share of these patients. So again, I'm too jet lagged to do the math, but you get the point. We're impacting only 5% of those 600 million lives. I know I'm not implying that every single one of these 600 million people should be walking around with some sort of hip or knee or shoulder implant, but I guarantee you that a lot of them could have a better, fuller, richer life if they were to have the access to the technologies that we bring. And that to me is the ultimate call to action, that you got 570 million people living in pain. One of every 3 primary care visits in the US, here in the US, deals with pain management, with some sort of arthritis. 2 of those patients will go home and surrender to pain. That is an urgent call to action. Life is motion. We learn how to walk before we learn how to talk. Some of us, as you can hear, will never learn how to talk, at least not in English anyway. We learn how to walk before we learn how to talk. And I gotta believe that God did that for a reason. Walk to hug your mom, walk to run from your sister or brother that is bothering you, walk to experience life, walk. Walking, motion is life. And the day that we stop walking is the day that we start talking, and that's when we start dying. Lack of mobility is one of the major drivers of chronic diseases around the world, from type 2 diabetes to certain types of cancer, to mental health, depression, to death. We don't put just a piece of metal inside of somebody's body. We restore somebody's life. We bring people back to walking, which is the ultimate experience in life. Orthopedics has been around for a while. In the medieval times, there were some sort of orthopedic surgeries happening. But modern orthopedics, implants and whatnot, started in 1968. At the University of Cape Town in South Africa, the very first prosthesis, knee prosthesis, was implanted. And then it was HSS, and it was the next one, and the next one, and the next one. But here we are, and almost 60 years later, there's still meaningful problems that we're trying to solve. Number one is awareness, which I just went through. We cannot sit and wait to solve the fact that so many patients are living in pain. We got to bring them into the funnel. Number 2 is efficiency. If any of you have been around an orthopedic procedure or an episode of treatment, it's extremely complex. It takes longer than it needs to, the episode of treatment. Surgeries are complex inventory-wise. Physical therapy can be complex. Everything about orthopedics can be much more efficient. And we, as a family, have an obligation to make things smarter, faster, and better, driving efficiency into orthopedics. Outcomes, 1 of every 5 knee recipients still is dissatisfied, the data suggests, with how that knee performed. A mission-centric organization like our family here in MedTech cannot be satisfied knowing there is only an 80% approval of a device. And then lastly, safety in these procedures. No, it's not an unsafe procedure, but certain pathologies can happen. Periprosthetic joint infection. Some patients will get an infection. And when that infection happens, 1 to 2% in the US, maybe up to 5% outside the US, you think it's a small percentage. When that infection happens, the mortality rate associated with these PJIs can be higher than some breast and other types of cancers. We have an obligation to make sure that we solve for awareness, for efficiency, for outcomes, and for infection. And we have an obligation to look into the future. There'll be a day in where we are restoring versus replacing. There'll be a day in where all these gadgets that we bring to the market, all this technology, all this data, can predict what is the right implant at the right time for that patient. We have an obligation to leverage all this great technology that you see on the slide to make sure that it delivers not just a clinical outcome, but an economic outcome. And we have an obligation to make sure that the zip code where you're born does not determine whether you'll be one of the recipients of these devices. This is an American-made industry, America for the world. I want to leave you with 4 numbers out of this slide, and then I'll wrap up in the next 3 minutes. 70, 70, 70, and 70. 70% of all the R&D in musculoskeletal care is done right here in the US for the world. 70% of the manufacturing of orthopedic devices, I'm not talking about Zimmer Biomet, I'm talking about us, is done here in the US. 70,000 manufacturing jobs in orthopedics right here in the US for the top 10 orthopedic companies. Impacting the last 70 billion, a $70 billion industry that we call global orthopedics, from America to the world. We at Zimmer Biomet, now talking about Zimmer Biomet, we're in a bold journey to transform patient care. We want to terminate pain. And if you're going to terminate pain, you got to do 2 things. Number 1, you got to wear lederhosen. And number 2, you got to have the Terminator by your side, someone who's reinvented himself countless times, from being a bodybuilder, 7-time Mr. Olympia, to being a business person, a millionaire by the age of 25, to being a major actor grossing over $6 billion in movies, to being the 38th governor of California. You get the point. And we want to leverage people like Arnold Schwarzenegger, our chief movement officer, to not just reinvent this company, it's been around for 100 years, called Zimmer Biomet, but to disrupt and to impact an entire industry. We launched at the very beginning of this year a campaign called the You'll Be Back campaign. And I encourage you to take a look at it. This is a call to action. This is about the 600 million lives that can benefit from the technology that, again, all of us, we in orthopedics, can bring to these patients. And Arnold has one very simple message for you if you're still in the sidelines. Let's go to the video.
Now it's not the time to give up or to give in. I won't allow it. You won't allow it. I mean, the couch doesn't own you. You own you. Am I right? Of course I'm right. You can do this. Well, maybe not this, but you get the idea, right? Don't be a couch potato.
Find a doctor at you'llbeback.com. Arnold says, do it now.
The sense of urgency is real, and that's the final message I'll leave you with. The sense of urgency is real. We have a mandate to follow on our why and to bring these patients from the sidelines into the funnel to get the treatment that they deserve. And with that, I'd like to introduce on stage my friend, my mentor, my twin brother, the 38th governor of California, 7-time Mr. Olympia, a disruptor, a great leader, a compassionate human, the one and only Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Wow, look at this crowd. This is fantastic. Where were all of you when I opened up Hercules in New York, my movie? I would have needed you there. That movie went in the toilet, by the way. But anyway, it's great to be here in San Diego with all of you. And thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, Governor, thank you for being here. It's an honor to sit on the stage with you, honestly. Your leadership in business, but also in politics as the governor of California was remarkable, and something I think is missing maybe a little bit in today's politics. So we look forward to the conversation, for sure.
Absolutely.
Can I start with Yvonne, though? How did this partnership with Arnold develop, where he became your chief movement officer?
Well, I tell people, I cover this story by saying that just like every good story, 90 to 95% of it is true. So I'll leave you guessing what's the other 5 to 10%. But the true story starts about a year and a half ago. And yes, we knew we had this problem called awareness. We had to go out there and find somebody that could help us bring patients into the funnel. We had to bring somebody that could appeal to a diverse group of people. We had to bring somebody that it was not just going to be a celebrity helping us out. It had to be somebody that really, truly believed in the mission. But the place is Cipriani's in Beverly Hills, California. I'm drinking with a buddy of mine, having dinner with other celebrities. No, Arnold is not at the table. And no, I cannot mention the other celebrities at the table, other than one celebrity there, Sofia Vergara, who I've known for quite some time. And we're sitting there, and nobody's paying attention to me, because when you have a bunch of Hollywood celebrities, who wants to talk to an orthopedic salesman? So I'm sitting there being ignored, and at some point, somebody looked at me and said, hey, you work in pharmaceuticals. I don't. If you could choose anybody to be your spokesperson, and mind you, there's a lot of celebrities at the table, who would you choose? And I took a sip of that last vodka gimlet that I was drinking by myself, and I said, Arnold Schwarzenegger. 3 people got offended. I think Sofia Vergara left the table. They're like, why Arnold Schwarzenegger? And I'll give you the short version, but I started to impersonate the accent, which, no, I don't do a great Austrian accent. And I started to talk about how bold he is. And I made this whole commercial where Arnold was going to jump out of a helicopter with a bazooka, and he was going to be fighting, yes, this is the vodka gimlet talking, he's going to be fighting with Zimmer Biomet knees, and we got him being a cyborg, you know, killing somebody's machine. And at that point, everybody looked at me really weird. And then they just ignored me again. And after the dinner, a gentleman who was backstage said, hey, look, if you're for real, other than all the BS about the cyborgs and all that, and you want to talk to Arnold, I know Arnold. And if this is a mission-centric campaign, if this is something that is going to move hearts and minds, if this is something that's going to be authentic, he may have a conversation with you. But mind you, he gets probably like 50 of these proposals per week. And sure enough, you know, 2 months, 3 months later, he said, we'll do it. But it has to be authentic. It has to be mission-centric. And no, I'm not jumping out of no damn helicopter.
Governor, is that how you remember the story too?
Well, first of all, this is 10 minutes I will never get back. But
this is going to be good.
No. Even and I, we have become very good friends, and he's absolutely correct. I was honored to be asked, to be honest with you. And it is, of course, I get, like he said, I get a lot of offers to endorse and to be participating in companies and all of that. But it has to be, as he said, it has to be organic. And this to me is organic. And for many reasons, in a funny way, because I played the Terminator. So, you know, you talk about a lot of body parts, that are artificial body parts. And the number 2 thing is that in reality, I have, you know, I'm 78 years old, and, you know, I have hip replacement, then I got the heart valve, then I got the Watchman, then I got the pacemaker, and I have this, and that. I mean, I have so many kind of artificial parts in my body that I said to myself, well, who else can really speak with authority about this subject than me? And so this was why it was a perfect partnership. And I always felt that in a fitness movement, in bodybuilding and fitness, I've seen over the last 60 years the many different problems that people have. If it is with their hips, if it is with their knees, if it is with their shoulders, if they need to have ankle replacement, their elbow replacement, whatever it is, I've seen it all.
Yeah.
And I've also seen people that have, you know, suffered tremendous pain. You see them in the gym, the way they walk, the way they bend down, the way they adjust the seat, and then they have to hold on to come back up again and all. And they complain about their pain that they have and the discomfort and how it makes them kind of shrink down and not be able to do the kind of things that they want to do. And so, you know, I always tell people, I said, look, you got to go and do something about it, because the important thing is not only to live long, but to live with joy. And the only way you live with joy really is if you keep moving and keep healthy, and if you feel good about yourself. So go to a doctor if you have pain, you know. So we started talking about, so when we started talking about what is it that most of the patients or potential patients are worried about, even say to me, they have fear. They are in the unknown. They don't know what to do. I say, well, let me talk to them. I can talk to them and I can encourage them because there's hope there, there's the technology there, there's the expertise there, that we have the most brilliant doctors in the world in America and all over the world. There are brilliant doctors, obviously. I can tell you this firsthand. And so I will be the person there talking to them and telling them about my experience and all that. So I bring the experience with fitness and with weight training, with sports, doing skiing and swimming and ice curling and tennis and everything else that I've done, playing soccer, growing up playing soccer. We both played soccer when we grew up, and all of that. So, I'm the man to talk to about those kind of problems that people have. And so I'm delighted to be part of this company, and Evan has been an absolute jewel. And I don't think there's anyone that can match up to his energy. This man works literally 24 hours a day. He uses the whole 24 hours. I love that about him.
Thank you, Governor.
Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds like, Governor, as you talk about your patient journey, right, you have experience with all forms of medical technology, essentially, right, from hips and knees to cardiac and on and on. You're kind of a walking example of the value of medical technology to the population broadly.
Yes, and I think that the key thing is to find, help as quickly as possible. I mean, there is kind of a therapy that is available for any kind of an injury that you have, or pre-surgery therapy that is extremely important. And I know a lot about therapy because my girlfriend is a therapist and has the biggest clinic in Los Angeles. And so she's doing a fantastic job. And so I go there a lot of times and I watch her when she goes kind of and trains and brings those football players and basketball players and UFC fighters and boxers and wrestlers all back into shape again and to be able to compete again. So I know a lot about therapy and how important therapy is. As one part is the kind of part that you want to replace in your body. Then it is who is doing it, the doctor who is doing it. So it's always important to get various different opinions, not just one. And then therapy. I mean, that is the follow-through. When you do a sport like, for instance, tennis, they always tell you follow through. In golf, they tell you about follow through. In skiing, finish your turn. But the same thing is with this here. It's all about follow through. If you just do the first step and not the second and the third, then you're cutting yourself short and you're shortchanging yourself. So it's very important to explain this to people. This is what you need to do in order to really enjoy again your life, and that you're able to go out and train again, run again, do marathons, or whatever you want to do. All of that is possible when you know that you can replace certain parts of your body and then come back bigger and better and stronger than ever before.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So let's go back a little bit in time. You and I were talking backstage a little bit about your engagement with George H.W. Bush, the first Bush president, as the chairman of the Presidential Fitness Commission. And at that point, you began to see the value of communicating movement and activity and staying in shape. Talk about your experience with them and what that has taught you as you move forward.
Well, I always wanted to promote fitness. And first of all, I have to explain that, the older you get, and that is like, after I was like 28, and I was finished with my bodybuilding career, and I won 13 world bodybuilding championships. From that point on, I started thinking about, do I want to continue lifting just for myself, or do I want to lift up the whole sport of bodybuilding and also fitness? And so I started becoming part of this fitness crusade, so to speak, and to promote and to kind of let people know it feels great to be strong. It feels great when you go to the gym, not just because physically you're strong, but I mean, psychologically, you feel great when you do sports. Of course, at that time, people sometimes laughed at it, or bodybuilding, and it was not really popular. We made it then popular because we understood that we had to kind of change the language and the communication. Whenever we talked about bodybuilding, people thought it's kind of like, you know, hitting a most muscular pose on the stage and oiling up and looking like one of those freaks up there on the stage with all the muscles popping out. But I was talking more about just weight training. So then a marketing company has told me, I said, you know, you should change your communication. You shouldn't talk about bodybuilding, you should talk about weight resistance training. And when we started talking about that for men and for women, it became very popular. Then we did, of course, the movie, the documentary, Pumping Iron and all this. And so this is when the whole thing started. And then I started getting involved with Special Olympics, because in Special Olympics, there was no weight training or no weightlifting at all. And so I introduced powerlifting into the Special Olympics and started traveling all over the world and started promoting, you know, weight resistance training for people that are intellectually challenged or that are physically challenged. And so that took off like wildfire. And we were, you know, promoting it in China and all over Asia and in Africa. And I was traveling around with Nelson Mandela down in South Africa, then all over Europe and all this. And so this is kind of was the beginning of my, oh, this is really working. I can really have an impact. So then eventually I became the chairman of the President's Council on Fitness, and I traveled through all 50 states to promote health and fitness amongst the youngsters and to encourage them, you know, to say no to drugs and no to violence and no to alcohol and no to all of those things, but to train, exercise your mind and exercise your body. And that became very popular, and President Bush was very, very happy about that. And so, you know, since then, I got addicted to the idea of reaching out and helping people under the kind of idea of like, we all have a responsibility to leave this world a better place than we inherited it. So this is why I'm involved. Thank you. But this is why I'm involved in environmental issues. This is why I'm involved in homeless issues. This is why I'm involved in fitness issues. This is why I'm involved with this here to help patients that have problems or have fear to get this surgery or don't know how to go about in which direction to go in orders. So to me, it's a natural thing. I'm all about trying to help people, no matter which direction it is, help people, make them feel good. And because there's certain things that you learn when you're like 78 years old, when you have been involved in bodybuilding, when you've been involved in movies, when you've been involved in government, and all of those things. So I learned a lot, and so I can share this now with the people besides, being in business and besides, making movies and TV shows and, doing the bodybuilding, hosting and promoting the bodybuilding championships, the Arnold Classic, and all of those kind of things I do also. But I mean, to me, the greatest joy is always giving back to the people and giving back to America, because America basically gave me everything that I accomplished in my life is all because of America. It is without any doubt the greatest country in the world. And we both agree. He come from Spain, I come from Austria. I mean, we know, even today with all the problems we have, I mean, I tell you, I just came from overseas. And the amount of people that come up to me and say to me always, Arnold, can you please help me to get to America? There was no one on this last trip that said to me, Arnold, please, can you help me to get to the Middle East? Or Arnold, can you please help me to get to Africa? Or Arnold, can you please help me get to Russia? Or can you help me to get to China? No, it was all about America. So even we have our challenges, and that we have to work on those things, but it is still the #1 country by far in the world.
I want to come back to your time in politics a little bit and talk about policy, but I also wanted to ask you a little bit more about your patient journey, and Yvonne would love to share your perspective as well here. But you have a room full of innovators out here, right? Some of the best CEOs in the world who run amazing companies, senior executives in our companies who are innovating right now, creating new products that take care of patients' lives and heal injuries and wounds. What sort of general advice could you give to the CEO and to business leaders that we might not understand coming from the perspective of a patient?
You know, I never felt that there's certain things the medical industry doesn't understand.
Yeah.
With all the doctors that I've visited, I always had people that listened carefully and that analyzed carefully, gave me their best advice. Then I sometimes got a second or third opinion about it. Sometimes those opinions change and they're different. But the bottom line is I never felt like, oh, they're not listening or they're, there's something missing and let me give them some advice or something like that. So I tell you, I'm very fond of the medical profession. I'm very fond about the hard work that they're doing. And I tell you, one of the great things is that because everything is so political today, are you on the right or are you on the left? But when you go to a hospital, you get treated by immigrants, you get treated by people from foreign countries, people that are conservatives, people that are liberals. No one asks you what your political affiliation is or anything like that. They just treat you, tirelessly treat you and try to make you better. And to me, this is, I think, the hospitals is a perfect example, or the medical profession, it's a perfect example of the way it actually should be in the whole country. This is how Americans should get together, is to not ask, where you're coming from and what is your belief or something like this, but let's work together. Let's work together. It doesn't matter if you're on the left or on the right. We'll find a solution together. We're all Americans. So this is, to me, the idea that will make it work. And it works really well overseas and other countries like that. So to me, this is where the action is. So I don't have any recommendations for anyone out there other than just to say that everyone, thank you, thank you, thank you for keeping me alive and keeping me in shape the way you have in the past. Thank you.
I'll keep my answer to less than 10 seconds so I don't get punched in the ribs again. I think we, as an industry, gotta continue to invest in awareness, what I mentioned earlier. It's not your product versus my product. It's disease. That's our #1 competitor. And shame on us if in 2025, soon to be 2026, we cannot leverage AI, data, or resources to continue to engage and educate patients about the fact that there is a better life that you can live with the musculoskeletal solutions that we got today, or cardiovascular, or you name it. So invest in awareness.
Yeah. Governor, you've done an amazing job over your career kind of reinventing yourself and creating new career opportunities, from being a bodybuilder all the way through to eventually becoming governor. Let's talk about your time and transitioning into politics and becoming governor. Why did you do it, first of all? Why did you want to get into public service? And reflect a little bit on how politics has changed from when you were running California.
Well, first of all, I did it because I always have a vision before I do anything. And so that never really changed.
Yeah.
When I was 15 years old, I had a very clear vision to become a bodybuilding champion. And I visualized standing on that stage in London at the Mr. Universe contest. And I believed 100% in this vision. It's see it, believe it, achieve it. And the same principle happened also when I got into acting. When I was finished with bodybuilding, all the agents and all the managers, studio executives would say to me, says, forget about getting into acting, you're too big. He says, the Hercules movies, they're over. That was done in the 60s. But now in the 70s, it's a total different era. I mean, Woody Allen is the big star in the 70s. Dustin Hoffman, Al Pacino, they weigh maybe 145 pounds. And you weigh 250, look at this, you're like a monster. and then your accent, and then your name, Schwarzenschnitzel, or whatever it is. I mean, no one would be able to pronounce that. And so it was like, oh, no, it can't be done, it's impossible, don't even try it. Just get into the health business, health food business, and open up a health food store or something like that. We can help you with that, but I mean, forget the movies. But I had a vision. And to me, there was no one that could talk me out of that vision. So this is the way I always say to people, and even in my book, Be Useful, when I talk about how to be successful, you got to have a clear vision of where you want to go. And I think you in the medical profession will know that, because to be a doctor is not something you do from one day to the next. You have to decide very early on, this is the direction I go, so you know which classes to take, which university to go to, and in which direction. So I mean, it is very, very important. So to me, having a vision is the important thing. And I had, when California was in trouble in 2003, and we had blackouts, and we had a budget deficit of $38 billion or something like that. Democrats and Republicans couldn't get along, and nothing got done, and all that stuff, and it was chaos. And all of a sudden there was a recall election, a special election to recall the governor. And so I said to myself, well, hell, I can do a better job than he does. And so I believed in that, and I went on the Tonight Show, did something very kind of weird. Instead of having a press conference, I went on the Tonight Show. My friend Jay Leno was the host, and I just announced that I'm going to run for governor. And boom, when I came home, my wife was crying. Obviously, I didn't communicate well at home. And she said, why did you do that? We will have no privacy. I said, screw the privacy. I said, I want to run California. And she, even though she was a Kennedy, I thought that she would understand the whole thing, but no. Maybe because I was a Republican, yeah. Who knows? But I mean, the bottom line was that she was freaking out and she was crying and all this stuff. But I mean, I jumped into the race, and 2 months later, on October 7th, the people of California voted for me overwhelmingly to become the next governor, the 38th governor. And so I then was governor for 7 years. And I tell you, I learned a lot. The capital in Sacramento became, for me, like a university, the best university in the world. Because every single day when I went to a meeting or anything like this, I learned. Because there's so many things you don't know. I mean, I didn't grow up with politics, even though I hung out, with the Kennedys. I hung out with Maria's father, Sergeant Shriver, who started the Peace Corps, the Job Corps, and legal aid to the poor and all of those things. And, with Teddy Kennedy and with Eunice Shriver, who started Special Olympics. And I listened to all of this stuff, and I learned a lot. But the capital was really like a university. Mm-hmm. Every single day. Imagine that you go in at 9 in the morning and you have a meeting with the nurses union. We want to have a 4-to-1 ratio. And then for an hour, they're talking about and debating about this 4-to-1 ratio. And I said to myself, the whole time, I was just really new in the job. The whole time, I had no idea what the hell they were talking about. And then after, when the nurses left, when the union leaders left, I said, what the hell were they talking about? And then, because I couldn't say, look, I don't know what you're talking about. So so they said to me, well, now we have 6-to-1 ratio, which means that there's 6 patients for every nurse. But the nurses union would like to have just 4 patients for each nurse. So I said, well, that makes sense. Why don't we do that? They said, well, we don't have the money. The hospitals, the people that run the hospitals, they don't have the money to afford that. So now we had to talk to them. And then all of a sudden, I started getting exposed to something that I never even heard of, a discussion like that. And it was like wonderful to learn all that, the complexity with the hospitals, the people that run the hospitals, people that run the nurses union, and all of this kind of things, how it plays together. The next meeting at 10 o'clock was then with the union leaders from the prison guards. And there is, again, you hear all kinds of other things, again, that you've never even thought of or heard about. So this is how it goes. So over a period of 7 years, you really then get enriched with this knowledge. And it is just fantastic. And my thing was, even though I'm a Republican, but I'm not a Republican hack. You know, I'm not kind of like a slave to the Republican Party or anything like that. So to me, I never wanted to be a servant to the Republicans or to the Democrats. I wanted to be a servant of the people, a true public servant. That's what I wanted to be. So this is why I made a real effort to bring Democrats and Republicans together in California. And it really worked, and we were able to do a lot of things except the budget. Oh, the Democrats love to spend money. I tell you, they love to spend money. But you know, that's their downfall. But the Republicans have their downfalls. So it doesn't really matter. It's still my responsibility as a governor is to bring people together and to figure it out. And we figured out that there's a lot of environmental stuff that we can do. We passed the most strict environmental laws in anywhere in this country, and probably in the world. And we did it while everyone said this is going to drive the economy down and we're going to wipe out economically. But the fact of the matter was, now, when you look back, we reduced our greenhouse gases by 25% in California, and we upped the renewable energy from 19% to 70%, million solar roofs all over the state of California, and did all kinds of great things, and we're #1 economically in the United States, and the fourth biggest economy in the world. So we have proven that you can, in fact, take care of the economy and the environment at the same time. So these were all fun things, fun projects to do. And to me, I loved, my wife said that you're gonna be an animal in politics because you're very competitive and all that stuff. But the fact of the matter was, I had no interest really in politics. My interest was more in policy.
Yep.
And so we talked about it backstage. The policy is so fantastic because you sit there, and if you're open-minded, you sit there with Democrats, independents, Republicans, and you hear all the different arguments, and you try to find a solution to whatever the problem is. And that is like unbelievable. And that's, I think, what you're all doing is find solutions to the problems. There's so many different problems medically that people have, and the medical profession has to find solutions for that. So I really enjoyed that. That was my favorite thing, and to learn every day and to absorb that was really fantastic.
And the policy is still a passion for you, right? Even since you've left public service, you've stayed very involved in policy, right?
You're absolutely right. I started the Schwarzenegger Institute at USC, and where we deal with homeless issues, where we deal with environmental issues, infrastructure issues, healthcare issues, and all of those kind of things, immigration issues and so on. So, I mean, I still am really hungry for, great information always, because things evolve and things change as much as your industry does. Same is also with policies in general. And you have to be up to date and learn and bring the best people together. And so when people ask me about what are you most proud of that you've accomplished, I always say I'm most proud of the fact that I'm able to be inclusive, to bring people together, and to never look at anyone as the enemy. That is what I'm most proud of, that I got this kind of education.
Yeah, that's great. It does feel like, Governor, at least from the outside right now, as you look at the politics of today, that piece is missing a little bit. Do you think it's really missing, and will it come back to a more sort of rational conversation about policy and how to advance?
Well, we have to be very careful, because democracy is not a spectator sport. You have to participate. We all have to be involved and really read up on the issues and learn about it. And what is going on now is kind of like, as you can see, we have, for instance, in California here, Proposition 50, to go and to pay back the Republicans. So the Democrats, because the Republicans, did the redistricting in Texas. Right. So now they get 5 extra Congress people there to send to Washington. So now the Democrats say we have to do the same thing, and they think that 2 wrongs make a right, or to kind of save democracy in the national level, we have to go and destroy democratic principles in California. So it's terrible of what's going on. It's like, what they are doing it, so we should do it too, and all of this. And it kind of takes me back a little bit to the Roman Republic 2,000 years ago, where they started doing those kind of things. And one party did one thing that was pushing the law, and then the other party said, well, they did it, so we can do this. And then all of a sudden they killed the candidate, and then the other ones developed a private army, and then they attacked Rome, and all of this kind of thing. All of a sudden there was the Roman Empire. It was a dictatorship, and the Caesar had the ultimate power. And so we just have to be very careful that we are not going in that direction. And this is why I say what the parties should do is they should outperform each other rather than out-cheat each other. Because what they're doing in Texas is cheating, and what they're doing in California is cheating. So it's like they're trying to move the goalpost rather than outperforming each other and showing that this party is better than this party because they take care of more of the healthcare, or they take care of more of the immigration, or more of the economy, whatever the issue is. And let the people decide then because of the performance of the party rather than the cheating and the abuse of the democracy that's going on right now.
Yeah. I saw recently you were with the Pope, I believe, right? Had a conversation with him, gave a speech, I think, over there as well.
Yeah.
What was that conversation like, and what was the message you were trying to deliver?
Well, the Vatican was, 10 years ago with Pope Francis getting involved in environmental issues. And so this was kind of a 10-year celebration of that. And they asked me to come there and to pump everyone up, to say we can do it. And because people look at California, they say, this is a state where they actually did it. They didn't talk about it because so many of the leaders around the world, they talk about what they're going to do. We're going to reduce our greenhouse gases. We're going to build more solar plants. We're going to build more this and more that. And then you find out that 70% of the countries don't keep their promise. And so I think that the Vatican was interested in hearing from me, how did we do it in California? How were we able to be the #1, environmentally and also economically? And so this is what my speech was all about. And then we had a press conference there, and I met the Pope, and I explained also to the Pope, who is very knowledgeable and is very interested in the environment. I told him that I'm there to help in any way I can, and he should just remember always that there's 7 million people that die every year because of pollution. So we should not talk about climate change, we should talk about pollution. Because climate change kills also a lot of people. 500,000 people this last 10 years, probably. But it's not 7 million people a year like pollution. So let's go and terminate pollution. That is my message.
Strong message.
Yeah.
In the healthcare space now, things are changing so quickly, right? You've got progress and innovation that's happening inside our companies. You've got the advent of AI and how AI is going to impact healthcare going forward. And a lot of the people in this room have to deal with governmental leaders, whether it's a regulator or a payer or a governor or the people that used to work for you. As you think about your interactions, what advice could you sort of give all of us about how to engage with political leaders to advance the issues that we care so much about?
Well, I mean, look, I think that in your industry, the most important thing here is to always encourage people to not to rely on just the technology or AI or this or that, movement. You know, I always go back to the basics. It's all about movement. The more you can move your body, the more you can go and be active, the healthier you're gonna stay and the longer you're gonna live. And the longer you're gonna live with quality life. That to me is the most important thing. I mean, I think if I have a choice to kind of get that across to the patients versus really studying or trying to figure out how to go and make government operate differently, I mean, I'd rather go and communicate that to the patients than the other thing. Because the other thing is now getting so confusing because you have restrictions and a permitting process that goes on a state level, on a local level, and on a federal level. It gets very tricky. You have to be an expert at that. And there's, of course, lobbyists out there that are very good at that. And I mean, I've seen it firsthand, how lobbyists can convince politicians they have to inroad and all of this, but then it ties it also together with fundraising and how much money do you give and all of this. I mean, that's just the way it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to move. We're getting close to the end, and I didn't want to finish up without asking you a little bit about your movie career. So, of all the movies you were in, which one was your favorite? Which did you enjoy the most?
I couldn't really tell you because it's like, what is the definition of fun? I mean, is it that the amount of fun that I had on a set? Then it's definitely Kindergarten Cop. And Twins with Danny DeVito. You know, those were two movies where we really had a fantastic time. And the last movie I just shot, which has not come out yet, which comes out probably next year, which was a Christmas movie where I play Santa Claus. And so that was also a very sweet story about Santa Claus losing, someone stole his bag so he doesn't have the gifts for all the people around the world and all this. And so it's a very, very fun story. So those movies are fun to make. Terminator is not a fun movie to make. You know, you sit there sometimes for hours to get the prosthetics put on your face and this eye lighting up and this and that, and this one arm is tied back because they put an artificial arm there, there's a skeleton, and all of this kind of thing. I mean, it's very, very, sometimes painful, sometimes kind of like tough to do, and then a lot of this stuff is shot at night, so you work all night long. So there's action movies are sometimes not as much fun. When they come out, they're very entertaining. Yeah. And especially when you have a competition like I had always with Stallone. We were always competing about, you know, who has more success at the box office. But then it went beyond that, like two little kids. Who uses longer knives to kill people on a screen? Who uses bigger guns? So all of a sudden, you know, I saw him in Rambo with this big machine gun. Then I got a machine gun that was actually, that is only mounted on a helicopter, but I had it in my hand like it was like nothing, and boom, 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 shooting in Predator in the jungle. And it was this competition, and who kills more people on a screen? So it's stupid stuff. Who has less body fat? Who is more muscular? And all of this kind of, who gets better reviews? So it was like an all-out competition. So that was kind of like what drove us, and to make, you know, better and better action movies. And, you know, then eventually we were able to sit down and kind of look back and laugh at all of this, that we acted like kids. But I mean, competition drives performance, so that's, I think, the bottom line.
Scott, with your permission, I know we got 45 seconds left. I've told the governor this before privately, and I've told him also in some other public forums. I'm not sure that the world realizes the impact that this human being has had in the world, which I think it's going to take some time for the world to realize it. But I also don't think that you actually realize the impact that you yourself really have brought to this world. I know I'm not going to go through the list of all the items, but there is so many. and we're looking for the perfect partner in our company, of course, there's an element of commercial success, but there's also an element of cultural transformation and getting people to think about adversity in the way you think about adversity, and getting up and always move forward. And I'm not talking about mobility, orthopedic mobility now. I'm talking about overcoming challenges. And for me, it's been a great privilege to get to know you. And in many instances in my life when I felt challenges, way before I knew you, you were that voice that told me, keep moving forward, keep moving forward. So I guess it's a long-winded way to say that we're grateful that you are here. And I'm beyond excited about the next 30, 50 years because you're doing amazing things for the world, Governor. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yvonne said it better than I could, but thank you for being here. Thankful for your years of leadership, particularly while you were governor and everything you've done since. And we're grateful to have spent a little time with you.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. And I think that I just want to say in the end, I think it's very important to think about those principles that can make you perform better. And that is, as I said earlier, don't listen to the naysayers. Because no matter what great thing that you come up with or want to do, there always will be people that are saying this will never be able to be done, or it has never been done before, or it can't be, or no, and all of those things. Don't listen to that. And always remember to have a very clear vision of where you want to go. And the other thing I want to add is never, ever be afraid of failure, because you've got to fail in order to get there and accomplish eventually of what you want to accomplish. There is no person out there, the greatest athletes in the world, the greatest business people in the world, the greatest politicians in the world, that have not lost many times. I lost many times in bodybuilding, in powerlifting, in weightlifting. My movies have gone in the toilet. Sometimes I've lost politically, and all of those things. That's just the way it is. But in the end, what is important is that you have the clear vision and go for it. Never let anyone stop you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. That was great.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you all for being here, and have a great rest of your day.